He wrote this all out for me. And I'm going to take it and give it to my mama. You never stop trying to get their approval. Well, it's good to see everybody. Man, these lights are bright. Hey, why y'all sat up there? Y'all antisocial. I don't blame you. All right, well, it's good to be here. Did y'all read the title of this speech? And y'all came anyway, huh? Just strange people. So I figure you've been fairly warned that I'm not your normal environmentalist. The title of the speech is Green Jobs, Not Jails. Green jobs, not jails. And so what I want to do is tell you a little bit about myself, to give you a sense of how I arrived at that as my kind of life's mission. And then I want to talk a little bit about what I think we can do to get there. But the first thing I just want to say is a little bit of something about you guys. You're strange. I just want to acknowledge. Strange and proud. This isn't the type of talk that a lot of people would even bother to come to. You have to care an awful lot to even think this is a good use of your time. And I just want to appreciate that you care this much. We are living in a very difficult time. First of all, our country is producing 25% of the greenhouse gases that are cooking the planet, that are imperiling the children of all species, and 25% of the world's prisoners. So you have to wonder, is there a connection there? You have a relatively small country, 5% of the world's population, and yet 1 out of 4 of the greenhouse gas molecules that are cooking the planet, 1 out of 4 have a little American flag they're waving. And 1 out of 4 people who are locked up anywhere in the world, who are chained up anywhere in the world, who are behind bars anywhere in the world, 1 out of 4 are here in the land of the free. So you're living in a time of mass extinction of our sister and brother species and mass incarceration of our sisters and brothers, driven globally by the country you live in. Now, you have to ask yourself the question, that can't be a coincidence. That can't be an accident. There must be something that would explain it. And I think that there is. And I think the explanation for how you have these two problems at the same time also can lead us to one solution that can fix both. And that's what my life and commitment is about. But it didn't start out that way. I was born in 1968. That was the year they killed Dr. King. It's the year they killed Bobby Kennedy. It's the year they beat a bunch of young folks senseless in the streets of Chicago because they wanted peace. That's the year they tried to kill hope in our country. And that's the year that I was born. I want to note that I am a ninth generation American, but I'm the first person in my family that was born with all my rights recognized by this government. I'll say that again. I'm a ninth generation American, 9 generation, but I'm the first person in my family that was born with all my rights recognized. My cousin Kenya was born in '64 before the '64, '65 Civil Rights Acts were passed. She was essentially born into a segregated America. She's not that much older than me, a couple of years older. My parents were born under segregation, were married under segregation. So some of you younger people, you may say, well, why do these black people keep talking about race? Just get over it. God, that was 10,000 years ago. And they're still talking about it. If they would just stop talking about it, then it would stop being talked about, which would make me feel much better. So I think it's important to realize how recent it is that, we can all be in here together. My dad was born in 1944 in poverty and segregation in Memphis, Tennessee. His name was Willie Anthony Jones. And my dad joined the military while most people were running out of the military. My dad voluntarily joined the military to get out of poverty. And when he got out of poverty, he put himself through college, a little black college in Jackson, Tennessee called Lane College. And while he was putting himself through college, my father married the college president's daughter, because my dad had it like that. And that's my mama. And so then he put his little brother through college, my Uncle Milton, who just retired from the Memphis City Police Force. And then he put his cousin through college. And he put me through college. And he put my sister through college, my father and my mother, Loretta Jones. And because of his determination, pretty much everybody in my family that wanted to get out of poverty was able to get out of poverty. Some people are stubborn, but the ones who wanted to come were able to come because of my dad. And when he died, the picture that they had on the funeral program was a picture of him standing in front of Yale Law School the day I graduated with his hands in the air. With his hands in the air. So proud. And I, because my father was Willie Jones, was a nerd. I wasn't getting in no trouble. I didn't want to hear it from my dad. To this point, to this day, I've never had a beer. Somebody's like, what? You said we were strange. I've never had a sip of wine. I've never had a sip of a martini or whatever y'all drink. I've never smoked a marijuana cigarette. I'm not joking. Because my dad was Willie Anthony Jones, and he wasn't playing. My dad was wanting us to get out of trouble and out of poverty, and he was insistent. So he's dead and gone, and I still am scared he might come and get me. So when I got to Yale, it's a true story. I was shocked to find at Yale young people, students at the university, who were using drugs. Now, I know this doesn't happen here. But this was stunning to me. Because my father had said, boy, you mess with none of that stuff. Wind up in jail. Keep your nose clean, get your lesson, be somebody. I said, yes, sir. These kids were doing every drug imaginable. They were snorting things and sniffing things and smoking things. Who here has been to Yale, or at least to New Haven? Okay. So you know what I'm talking about. These are terrible children. And And it got so bad that I was afraid to call my father because I didn't want him to come up there and take his belt off and just start, So I thought that would be in poor form. So, you know what I'm talking about. So instead I said, well, let me call my grandmother. Now, because I'm African American, we don't have grandmothers, we have big mamas. Okay, just cultural competency here. So I called Big Mama. This is what we have. So, and I grew up in the rural South, so I talked different than I talk now, but I called her. I needed her help. I needed her counsel. I said, Big Mama, I'm up here with these students at Yale, and they're smoking the marijuana cigarettes, Big Mama, they're smoking them. She said, oh, baby, just pray for them. Just pray for them, baby. I said, I've been praying and they're still smoking the marijuana cigarettes. She goes, oh, baby, that's just terrible. She goes, well, tell your professors. I said, they're smoking them too. They're smoking them too, Big Mama. These people are heathens. So, like any other self-respecting Southern Christian kid, I said, I got to get away from these people. So I decided to start volunteering in the community. Now, those of you who've been in New Haven, how far away from the Yale campus is the hood? But 50 feet. Yeah, depending on which building. 50 feet, 4 blocks, 5 blocks. In other words, at Yale, you can actually see the hood. The hood is a technical term for, anyway. I know it's an academic environment. I don't want to offend anybody, but. And you will be shocked at what I discovered when I started volunteering in the hood. They're smoking them too, Big Mama, they're smoking them too. But when the kids at Yale went too far and the system realized what was going on, the system at Yale would respond aggressively and put those kids in rehab. Had a building on campus called mental hygiene. I'm not making that up. Huh? Yep. He worked there. He worked there. I got a witness. Oh, I got a testimony. Yeah. Mental hygiene, a rehab center on campus. So when kids fell out, now fell out is another Ebonics term. You might say fainted or something. We say fell out. The kid fell out, overdosed or near overdose, they would go to mental hygiene and they would get help. You see where I'm going? Those kids would then go on, and listen, they could pause the semester if they needed to. Just sort of pause the semester. The kids having too many problems, doing too much, pause the semester, disappear, go to Europe or something. And then when they were ready, come back, hit pause, and go on with their lives. Those kids graduated. Many of them went on to become doctors, lawyers, and in the case of George W. Bush, true story. But those kids, 5 blocks away, same age group, 18, 19, 20-year-old kids, smoking the same marijuana cigarettes, went to prison. 7 years, 15 years, 18, 22 years, drug out of the housing projects in their underwear in front of everybody because of the middle of the war on drugs. But the police would drive past Yale with the lights flashing, drive past Skull and Bones to go to the housing project and get kids who had less money, were doing fewer drugs, and put them in prison. And everybody knew the hard drugs were being done at Skull and Bones. They never kicked in the door of Skull and Bones, but they kicked in the doors in every housing project in New Haven and filled those prisons up. That's very hard to understand. You're a 21-year-old, nerdy, sheltered kid. I talked to my dean about it. And I'll never forget this conversation. Changed my life. I said, "You're teaching us all this law. And I'm proud to be here learning it. But it says in here we're supposed to have equal protection under the law. And I can walk out the front door of this law school and look to my left and look to my right and see it's a lie." And my dean said to me, "Well, you know, Van, it's true. Some of our kids are doing what you say, but those kids in those housing projects, they're drug pushers. They're drug dealers. Our kids, well, they're experimenting with drugs." I said, "Well, sir, I can see no such distinction in our law or our Constitution." And I decided then and there that I was going to do something about this. This is in the early 90s. We went from 1992, when Bill Clinton was elected, we had 1 million people behind bars. By the time he left in 2000, we had 2 million. We doubled the prison population. We now have 2.3 million. But we doubled the prison population in 10 years based on a war on drugs where the main criteria was not being a drug user, it was being a drug user with the wrong skin color and the wrong zip code with the wrong bank account. Turns out, right now in your country, African Americans and whites use illegal drugs at exactly the same rate. Study after study shows that. Exactly the same rate. Sometimes one will be a little bit higher than the other, but not much, not by a full percentage point ever. But African Americans go to prison at 50% the rate. Oh, I'm sorry, did I say 50%? I'm sorry, twice the rate. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Did I say twice the rate? Would that be shocking to you if it's twice the rate? Would that be outrageous? Would you think something was horribly wrong with your country if it was twice the rate? It's 6 times the rate. 6 times the rate. If these black kids would just stop doing those drugs, pull their pants up. You ever heard that theory? It's a unique economic theory. It says, I doubted it at first, but I read The Wealth of Nations. And it says right in there, page 342, if black kids pull their pants up, jobs fall down, you see. So that's the explanation. So I graduated from Yale Law School. I moved to the Bay Area. I started an organization called the Ella Baker Center for Human Rights. I raised a little tiny bit of money. I got a civil rights organization to give me an office in the back of their complex in a closet. That's a true story. To get here, I had to come out of the closet. Seriously, there was a closet in the back of Eva Patterson's organization, the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights. We took the shelves out. We put a desk in. We put a computer on the desk. And then we learned something to our horror. There are no plugs on the inside of a closet. So we had to move the tile and throw an extension cord over the wall into the next office so I could have a place to plug my computer up. And that was my office for 3 years. The Ella Baker Center for Human Rights was me, an intern, and a closet. And we went to war. To war. Against Democrats who were running that state. Famous Democrats like Jerry Brown and Willie Brown and all these people, and who built in a 20-year period 1 public university and 23 prisons and filled them all up with poor black and brown people in the 90s. And we went to war to try to stop it, and we mostly lost. But we succeeded in our attempt to, in the 2000s, to begin rolling some of this stuff back. And we were able to close 5 youth prisons. And my organization, working with our partners, we were able to cut California's youth prison population by 80% with no increase in youth violence or youth crime, which is a huge victory. But I burned out. I couldn't continue. Too many funerals. Too many funerals. Too many funerals, too many coalitions blew apart because hurt people. And you got too many grieving mothers and stressed out college graduates trying to be do-gooders in a community they don't know nothing about. And I burned out. I got to where my hands would just shake all the time. I was just emotionally destroyed. And even when you win those fights, you put so much into it that by the time you get to the victory, there's almost no joy in it. So I started trying to get healthy. I was not trying to save anybody. I wasn't trying to save the polar bears. I wasn't trying to save Oakland. There was nothing noble about where I was at that point in my life. I was just tired. And I discovered a place called Marin County. Now, those of you who know anything about California know Marin County is very close to Oakland, but it's nothing like Oakland. Everybody in Marin County, first of all, is happy. It's just over the horizon from Oakland. It's just over the bridge, but we can't see it from Oakland. And it's amazing, and there's all kind of stuff over there that we don't have in Oakland. There's yoga studios and solar panels and hybrid cars and salads, just all kind of just amazing stuff. And I started going over there, going to retreat centers and just trying to get healthier and trying to get better. And it worked. I started feeling better. I was eating better. I was just, and I started, but I would basically have to sneak over there. I didn't want to tell my friends I was going to Marin County to like a Buddhist retreat center. That didn't sound very, tough. So, yeah, so I'm going to the Raiders game. I'll be back in 3 days, Like literally just have to sneak over there. But I started feeling better. And But I started also feeling bad because I started asking myself the question, why do I have to leave Oakland? Why do I have to drive all the way over here to Marin County to have some positive, groovy experience? And I was driving back, and I was thinking about the young people I'd worked with. I was thinking about the people we were trying to get out of prison. Some of them were getting out of prison, then going back in because there were no jobs. And I said, you know what we need? We need green jobs, not jails in Oakland. It was just like a thunderbolt in my head. We need green jobs, not jails. And I could see a vision in my mind of a healthy, thriving community. I started doing some research. And I said, I noticed, I said, we've passed all these laws in California for solar and all these different things, organic food, but people are ordering solar panels. They're not getting them up on their house for 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, because there weren't enough workers trained to put up the stuff. I said, hold on a second. You've got a great product, you've got great companies, you've got consumer demand, but there are no workers. Solar panels are great. They don't put themselves up, though. Somebody's got to be trained to do that work. And I said, listen, you got the most important work that needs to be done. And these young people who are desperate for work. I said, wait a minute. Why don't we take the people who most need work and get them trained to do the work that most needs to be done and fight pollution and poverty at the same time? So what if we had green jobs, not jails? So we went and we fought and argued with the Oakland City Council, and they gave us $120,000 to start a program called the Green Jobs Corps. $120,000. I mean, when you've been in a little closet for years, the idea that the city is going to give $120,000, we were jumping for joy. And we started getting young folks from the community in this program. And then something amazing started to happen. First of all, a woman called my office wanting to be of some help. But I had made a mistake. I'll admit it. I made a mistake. Well-intentioned. It's a well-intentioned mistake. It's not a mistake that was done out of some bad thing. I was trying to be helpful. And I had hired to be the receptionist at the Ella Baker Center, because now we're a little bit bigger, a young woman, caller from the hood, good person, but it turns out that she didn't listen to NPR. She didn't listen to NPR. And it turned out that she didn't always take the best notes when it was time for delivering the messages to me. And so I kept getting this note saying, Nancy Pelosi wants to talk with you. And I kept saying, I don't have time to talk to Nancy Pelosi. I'm busy trying to change America, you see. And so eventually, I figured out that it was Nancy Pelosi. She thought what we were doing was great. And she took me by the hand to Washington, D.C. Here I am, I've been frontline grassroots activist, suing cops, closing prisons, going to funerals, running youth violence programs. Finally got this teeny little grant to get a couple of kids' jobs, and suddenly I'm in Washington, D.C. with the Speaker of the House saying, listen to this guy. Turned out nobody thought it was a bad idea. And a guy named George W. Bush signed a bill to take our little program in Oakland and spread it across the country with $125 million. So I wrote a book about what we were trying to do. The book became a bestseller in 2008, and a guy named Barack Hussein Obama read the book. And he asked me to become a part of his administration. So I go from literally in an 18-month period, and Kalia can testify, she was there for all this, from begging for $120,000 from Oakland City Council to about 24 months later, running an $80 billion program for the President of the United States. Y'all can clap for that if you want to. And we can get into all the ups and the downs of it at the Q&A, but what I want to tell you is this is what I discovered. Number one, it's not a coincidence that this country is throwing away people at the same time that it's overheating a planet. What I have come to believe very, very firmly is that there is a myth at the heart of our industrial society of disposability. There's a deep belief that we have throwaway resources, that we have throwaway species, and that we have throwaway neighborhoods and children too. And this whole idea that it's not all sacred, that it's not all precious, that you can have sacrifice zones where you poison the planet, you poison the people, you pollute people so that other places that are more worthy can be green and clean. That is deeply, deeply connected with the idea that there's some neighborhoods that can be bad and some neighborhoods that can be good, that there are some children that are worthy and some that are not. That this idea of disposability is not just an environmental concept. It's a deep part of the mythology that undergirds industrialism. And that at the same time, once you find in yourself that place that knows, no, actually we don't have any throwaway people and we don't have a throwaway planet, you start to see something very, very powerful, which is simply this. My second point. It takes all of us to save all of us. It takes all of us to save all of us. It turns out that the ecological elite isn't strong enough by itself to save the world. It turns out that the ecological elite can only at its best create what I would call ecological apartheid, where you have ecological haves and ecological have-nots, where you have places like Marin County where everything is green and clean and amazing, but also really damn expensive. And then you have ecological have-nots living in Oakland 30 minutes away with kids going to school, setting off the metal detectors, not because they have a gun, setting off metal detectors not because they have a knife, but setting off metal detectors because they have asthma inhalers, 80% of them, 30 minutes away because the port is so polluted. That the eco-elite by itself can only accomplish ecological apartheid, which is a speed bump on the way to ecological apocalypse. They can slow it down, but they can't stop it on their own. And what I've learned is that the solution to poverty is the solution to pollution. And the solution to pollution is the solution to poverty. Put millions of people to work, repowering industrial society in a clean way. The two big systems, food and fuel, how we power our buildings and our machines right now is based on dirty energy. If you change that out and power it based on clean energy, based on the sun, the wind, energy efficiency, you have tremendous transformative power for ordinary people. What if ordinary people living in houses in places like Oakland, who are poor, had solar panels on their roofs? Right now we have what I can only call a very stupid solar strategy. And it's stupid for the following reasons. Where do rich people tend to live? In the flatlands or the hills? In the hills. I didn't even ask you what city. I didn't even have to ask. Rich people live in the, poor people live in the flatlands. Every city in America is in the Constitution. It's required, I don't know. Everywhere you go, it's the same thing. Now let me ask you another question. Where does the sun beam down the most? In the hills or the? Third question, where are all the solar panels? In the hills, on the rich folks' houses, with all the shade on the house. This is profoundly stupid. Meanwhile, you have poor people living in the flatlands with the sun beaming down on their black tar roofs. Every one of these houses could be a little power station for the world. Every one of these houses could not only power themselves, but imagine you get a whole lot of extra power, you could sell it onto the grid. Now, rather than grandmama paying the power company's paying grandmama. So yeah, that's what happens in Germany, I know. You said that? What's your name? Stephanie says it happens in Germany. I got 2 witnesses. Having church up in here. You are correct. They do it in Germany. They don't do it here. Because our power, woo! Stephanie says because the power, don't keep talking, the power company's got a grip. They got a lock on us. And she wants to know how to break it. Let me tell you something, Stephanie. You're now talking like a conservative. Think about that. Shouldn't every American, citizen or otherwise, have the right and the liberty on their own property to power their house the way they want to? Shouldn't every American have the liberty to power their own house, their own way, and if they want to sell that power to somebody else across the street or across the continent, shouldn't they, on a public grid, an enforced monopoly by the government? Shouldn't they have the right to sell those clean energy electrons to whoever they want to without a government-imposed monopoly ordering them that you will pay this much, you will breathe this much pollution? You sound like a conservative. Huh? Yeah. Because it's so stupid, even conservatives can have an argument against what we're doing. No offense. See what I'm saying? There is a deep injustice here. A deep injustice here that is a stench in the nostrils of God and would offend the honest sensibilities of any sane political ideology on the left or the right. You see. So if you begin to think about this now, can you imagine a green growth alliance that includes good, smart thinking libertarians like my friends in the Green Tea Party? You like green tea? Well, there's a Green Tea Party. I'm not joking. I'm not joking. In Florida, there's a Green Tea Party, libertarians who say this is crap. I want you to, as I move to my close, I want you to think about this. What I've learned is this. Number one, it's all sacred. And this mythology of disposability is at the root of a whole series of problems. And it's only when you begin to recognize that it's all sacred that you begin to see a way out. Number two, it takes all of us to save all of us. You need the right-wing libertarians. You need the labor unions who are willing to train people to put up these solar panels. You need the unemployed. You need the eco-elite have done a beautiful job of raising consciousness, pioneering products. They just can't do it by themselves. It takes all of us. You need those former coal miners to see a way for them to be successful in a new energy economy and paradigm. And it's not just fuel, it's also food. If you change the way we power our buildings and our machines, that's the clean energy revolution. You change the way we power our bodies, that's the local green and organic food revolution. You put those two revolutions side by side, you can change the whole world. You change the way we do food and fuel, you can change everything, but you need everybody. And so, in conclusion, I just want to say this. We have to have an environmental movement that doesn't just focus on what you can have less of and pay more for. So much of the environmental movement's conversation is have less and pay more. Pay a green premium for more expensive products and use less stuff. And there are some people for whom we have to bring their level of consumption down to a dignified level. That is true. We do have overconsumption. That is true. But there are some people who we've got to bring their level of consumption up to a dignified level. There are people who don't have enough yet. They don't have enough good food. They don't have enough mobility. They don't have enough energy here and around the world. And so when you start talking about green solutions, being solutions that are not just about what you as a consumer can pay more for, but also what you as a worker can get paid more to produce, you open up this tent. I think about my dad. He was very, very brilliant man because he didn't like conservatives or liberals. He didn't. I think I'm more like him every day. My dad said, the conservatives, the liberals are wrong because the liberals think that you can give somebody something and stop them from being poor. My dad said, I was a poor kid. You can't give a poor kid money and stop him from being poor. You stop him from being broke. And they run out of money, they'll be broke again. says you can't just give somebody money and stop them from being poor. They're still poor in their heart. They're still poor in their spirit. They're still poor in their education. They're still poor in their skills. They'll be broke again tomorrow. Every poor kid, my dad said, has to climb that ladder out of poverty on their own effort, because it's only when they do that can they stay out. And the liberals don't seem to understand that. But he said the conservatives are wrong too. He said, yeah, it's true, every poor kid has to climb that ladder on their own individual efforts. But that's the kid's responsibility. He said, but adults got a responsibility too. We have to make sure every poor kid has a ladder to climb. We have to make sure as adults that every poor kid has a ladder to climb. You can't expect kids to build a ladder and climb it too. Seen properly, ecological solutions are a way for all of us to work together to put some green rungs on that ladder of opportunity for people. You can get the training. You can make the products. You can save the money. Your house can pay you. These are green rungs on a ladder of opportunity. And if that's what this movement is about, restoring opportunity and hope to everybody, to all children, because we care about the children of all species, this is a movement that would be invincible because it's a movement that my father could join. Thank you very much.
Take questions from the audience. The way that we'll organize it is he'll take
three or four times, yeah.
4 questions at a time, and then he will respond. We ask that you keep your questions succinct, not as much commentary as the question itself is what's important. So yes.
I'm wondering, did you say anything optimistic about the survey? Is there optimistic points to it? Well, you said what we can work on, but did you see anything else?
So optimism.
Someone in the, I thought someone had their hand up.
Yeah, how about the idea of, just like we have FEMA that swoops into community when there's a natural disaster, why isn't there a federal jobs program that swoops in when an industry or, has basically either been exported or like coal is no longer, that swoops in and retrains those people. It doesn't wait for a couple generations till they're, dying on the vine.
Gotcha. So, emergency jobs program, why not?
How on earth do you keep your composure when you're talking to Trump surrogates on CNN?
Who asked that? What's your name?
Noah.
Hi, Noah.
Hi.
I love you, man. Couple more.
I have kind of 2 weirdly separate questions. One is, I think you were talking about like diet and and climate change, and I'm a vegan in part because of my concerns about climate change, and I wondered what your thoughts were about diet and climate change. And the other thing is, I'm a substance abuse prevention specialist, and so we have an opiate epidemic here, and I was really struck by some of your remarks about the impact of substance use. We have a recreational marijuana legalization initiative coming up in Massachusetts in November, and I just wondered if you have
just start at the bottom. First of all, thank you for your work on the substance abuse prevention stuff. Just give her a round of applause. It's one of the most important things that's happening right now. I lost a dear friend to opioid abuse this year, so it's a real thing. I am just bittersweet about the whole thing because it seems like with the opioids, people are kind of starting off with more of a health approach, and that wasn't the response to crack in the 80s and 90s in the United States. And so it's just somewhat painful because if people had flooded in with people like you trying to help, rather than saying, oh, well, it's black people using drugs, let's shoot them and kick in doors and put people in jail. And, you know, one thing that we don't talk enough about, and I think sometimes we just talk about things in ways that don't make sense. Right now, what we have is a pro-drug cartel set of policies. When you make something completely illegal, what you do is you create conditions for cartels. When they made alcohol illegal, what happened? You had Tommy guns fired throughout the streets of America and bootleggers who were providing that product in a black market environment. Black market environments are always violent. So if you create a black market for anything, if you create a black market for Twinkies, you will have a whole bunch of people slinging guns with Twinkies because people want their Twinkies. Ask me how I know. And so these people who want to have absolute prohibition for every one of these drugs, like I said, I've never had a beer, so this is not special pleading. It's just common sense. All you are doing is empowering drug cartels and people who are either desperate enough or crazy enough or, you know, are willing to engage in risky enough behavior, greedy enough for money to fill the thing. So I'd say if you don't want to empower cartels and violent people, then the number one thing you don't do is try to ban everything. You empower the worst people with that. Instead, what you should do is decriminalize, tax, and regulate, and then have people like yourself come in to try to prevent. Then you've got enough resources and not a whole lot of chaos. You can actually try to push things down. Similar to what we're doing with cigarettes. We've got a big, steep decline in cigarette use. Now, of course, they have these new electrical ones. We got to fight on that. But I just think it's very, very important that we remember. You have people sitting in prison right now, 20 years later, 30 years later, for nonviolent drug abuse, possession of crack 30 years ago. And now everybody's coming talking, oh, somebody's using heroin and opioid, we want to help them. Well, don't forget those people who were left behind the last time when that wasn't the response. Those people should be able to come home and get help. I want to say that I too am a vegan from the time I wake up until breakfast. I do plan on extending it till later in the day, but you got to start somewhere. I really think that everybody should be. It's probably the one thing you can do in your life that would make the biggest difference. But I haven't been able to get there, so I applaud you. Optimism. I'm black. I have to be optimistic. It's part of the thing. Part of the thing, by the way, that I'm frustrated about is the younger Sanders voters who have done such an incredible job bringing optimism back, frankly, who expanded the conversation about money in politics and corruption and corporate influence beyond anything I ever thought I would see in my lifetime. Seeing them now almost so frustrated they want to give up. And I just want to say, somebody said something about optimism. I just want to say, You guys are just getting started. You are just getting started. And you are going to win. If you lose one election and quit, that's not how it works. Again, I'm 9th generation American. 9th generation. How many bad days, how many bad elections did my family have to go through before we, got to me, let alone to Obama? So this is going to be a fight that won't take you 9 generations, but it might take you 9 years. And you can't quit after 9 months. I think it's very, very important. You're the best thing in this country. You are the best thing in this country. The young Black Lives Matter activists, the dreamers, the young Sanders voters, 350.org, all the people who are fighting to make sure that, wonderful universities that are fighting for a better future don't spend their money on industries trying to destroy the future. Right? The best thing in the country, the best thing on any campus, these young people fighting to make sure these endowments are not being used to support big oil companies and polluters and nasty people. But you can't give up after 9 months. You can't do it. You let down a lot of people. We took you seriously. We thought you wanted a different country. You say, well, the DNC cheated and stole the election. I always say, well, did you notice they were called the DNC? The DNC's been horrible the whole time. I mean, I thought that's why you were fighting, is because they suck. So you're supposed to keep going. So you have a lot of optimism because of these young people, because of what they've been able to do, and because their interests and the interests of the planet are absolutely lined up. So my optimism comes from them. My friend who says, why don't we have a FEMA for jobs? I'll tell you why, because nobody ever said that before. It's a brilliant idea. It really is. And it's amazing how many great ideas there are. We have a country that has great people and great ideas. We have great people with great ideas who don't know what to do. There's way more of that than bad people with bad ideas who do know what to do. The problem is that the bad people with bad ideas and bad toupees and orange skin are so visible. Did I offend someone? I'm talking in generalities. I'm not. Which brings me to my friends at CNN. Let me just say this. Jeffrey Lord and I are actually friends. People often suspect when they watch Jeffrey Lord on CNN. Anybody know what I'm talking about? Who knows who Jeffrey Lord is? Anybody know? Okay, if you don't know, raise your hand. Just raise your hand real high, okay. So, there's a soap opera on a TV station. The TV station is CNN. The soap opera is called Hillary versus Donald. And I play a character in the soap opera named Van Jones. And my nemesis in the soap opera is a guy named Jeffrey Lord. Don't Google him, it will make you sad. And many of you, having watched Jeffrey, have a suspicion. And your suspicion is that Jeffrey is actually a paid stooge, okay? You suspect that this guy is a paid hack who is just saying these things because Donald Trump is, bankrolling him. And what I want you to know is that's not true. Jeffrey Lord believes every syllable and semicolon of everything that he says on the air. Stop crying. And so do millions of other people. So do millions of other people. And I think it's an actual great service that he is doing to give voice to people who see the world just that way. What I love about being on CNN is that we actually have, it's not, we actually have a Van Jones and a Jeffrey Lord sitting right next to each other, debate nights, primary nights, and having it out. And there's not one thing I say I don't believe. I think you guys can see I'm pretty straightforward, and Jeffrey's the same way. And the stuff he says is infuriating, and people feel like it's nuts. Some people say it's nuts. I think that's the new way you do it now. A lot of people say it's nuts. A lot of people are saying that. A lot of people are saying it's nuts. See, I learned from Trump. But guess what? In a democracy, everybody doesn't have to agree. It's the whole point. Dictatorship, everybody got to agree. Democracy, we don't have to agree. In a democracy, there are really only two political parties: the give a damn party and the don't give a damn party. The worst people in the world are not Jeffrey Lord. He at least gives a damn. He at least has an opinion. He's at least fighting for what he believes in. The worst people are the people who don't give a damn, who aren't even in the process, who don't care, who either they're too happy or they're too sad to be involved. Those are the people I worry about. Those are the people I worry about. I grew up on the edge of a small town in the rural South. So frankly, I had to deal with people much dumber and meaner than Jeffrey. And most people do. And most people do. So what I found, I did this interview for the New Yorker magazine, New York Times Sunday magazine, and the headline was "Van Jones Can Empathize with Trump Voters." And I really can. I want to say this, and then I'll take a couple more questions, and then we'll be done. I really can. I can empathize with the Trump voters. And I think it's important. Trump is a different thing. We could talk about him. But his voters. I was in Indiana. My wife was graduating from divinity school this past spring. And I was driving around the reddest part of Indiana. I said, you know what, if I lived here, I would vote for Trump as many times as I legally could. You know why? First of all, you're a 55-year-old, 56-year-old, white, heterosexual male in one of those small towns. You lost your job 4 years ago, 5 years ago, or longer. No FEMA rushed in there to help you. The NAACP didn't rush in there to help you. The National Organization for Women didn't rush in there to help you. The Sierra Club didn't rush in there to help you. You know who rushed in there to help you? Nobody. Nobody. Let me finish. This is where we go. This is where we go. First of all, nobody helped you. There's no organization out there that's trying to help you. You get up every morning. You got to drive your granddaughter to daycare. You drive past a Blockbuster Video that's been sitting there empty for 8 years. The damn chains have rusted to the grate because nobody's even opening the door just to look. Maybe we could open up some kind of a pet store. No, nobody's even considering doing anything. The grass is growing up through the asphalt in the parking lots. You had 2 kids. One of them has an opioid problem, and you got to deal with her baby. The other one who did good, the one you're proud of, the one who went to college, comes home Thanksgiving and says, Dad, you're a bigot. You're an Islamophobe. You're a homophobe. And ruins Thanksgiving every damn time she comes. Can't even have Thanksgiving. And there's zero chance that your community is going to get better tomorrow or the next day, or you're going to get a job, and nobody cares. And it's quite obvious that nobody cares. And then somebody gets on TV. And they say, I'm going to make America great again. That's medicine. That's medicine for that man. Did you go help him? I didn't. Do you even have in your liberal NPR worldview any respect for that man? Or is he the problem secretly? Is he somebody that's just stupid? You got to educate so he can be more like you. He knows that. He's not wrong when he thinks that we're stuck up. If we can't develop an imagination for America, where he gets to have a place of dignity and honor and respect, the same as the ones we usually care about, then we can't be mad when he says, guess what, they don't want me, and this man does. They don't respect me, this man does. They don't trust me, don't believe in me, they look down on me, this man doesn't. It's a judgment on us. We leave the door open for this type of stuff. The last time I got arrested, the last time I went to jail, I didn't go to jail marching with Black Lives Matter in Oakland, California. I got arrested marching with coal miners who were fighting a coal company that was trying to steal their pension. And I called every environmental leader to come stand with me against this coal company that was stealing the pension from these coal miners. And they all had a reason not to come. Now, if it had been about some birds, if it had been about some polar bears, I've never seen people that love animals that would eat you. More than these environmentalists. But now you got human beings that are also being hurt by these coal companies. And if you're a retired coal miner, you're not putting any more carbon in the atmosphere. And I'll tell you a true story. This is going to embarrass some people, but I have to tell the truth. I'm so stupid and culturally incompetent that I show up at this demonstration with these coal miners that have come from Appalachia to St. Louis to protest in front of Patriot Coal's headquarters, and they're going to march around the headquarters, and some people are going to get arrested. And I'm so stupid that I get there and I give my speech. You know, I'm a brilliant public speaker. So I was amazing, man. And we got finished, and it's time to march. And I say, I want them to know I'm with them, So I start trying to lead the chants, I'm like, let's go, I'm just leading the chants. They can't chant. Black lung. They're marching big hands, hard hands. Shake your hand. But they're marching with their oxygen pulled behind them and their wife on the other elbow. They can't chant. Gave it all down those holes. Gave it all. They risked their lives, their lungs, their limbs to keep the lights cut on for me and you. And then we let them fight alone. We let them fight alone. That's wrong. That's wrong. Now, until we have a movement that says, thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. And we appreciate you. We respect you, what you did. You can't get those years back. You can't get the lungs back. But we're not going to call you bad names because of who you vote for. We see you as more than that. You may not say the words right, but we see your heart. Then we deserve Trump. Two more questions. You. No, you just trying to put your shirt on. She's like, all right. Yeah.
I'm curious, so all these students who are really pushing our schools to divest from private prisons and fossil fuels and be accountable and take more responsibility for this global crisis, we're not getting any response, right? No administration is willing to listen to us or talk to us or hear us out, and I'm wondering what you think is the best way to hold administrations accountable and push colleges to do what's right.
Well, I don't actually know. Here's what I do know. I know you're the best thing in the country. You're starting, how old are you?
We're 18 and 19.
18 and 19. What year were you born?
97.
Born in 97. Don't feel bad. So you're born in 1997, you're 18, 19 years old, and your first fight, your very first fight, is better than any fight before you. You're fighting for your school, the money that you give your school, that your parents give your school, that your alumni give your school, to be used to help you and to help people you've never met live in a better country and on a livable planet. That's a tough fight. See, your fight goes against all the logic that got us in this mess. See, they thought, well, we get a bunch of money and we put it someplace and it gives us more money back and that's a good thing. There's a reductionist, vulgar, simplistic mindset that goes along with this society. They can count what they spend very easily with the models they're going to teach you. But they can't count what they save. See? If you say pull the money out of these horrific private prisons, which now even the federal government's abandoning, and these horrific polluters that themselves are going to get it, whether it's 5 years, 10 years, or 15 years, these polluters, that's not a good thing to be betting on. All they can see is, well, you're going to make us get less money next quarter. It's a totally different mindset what you have. So well, maybe next quarter you lose. But guess what? We're going to save a planet. We're going to save a generation. We're going to have a much more productive society when we're using new technologies. We aren't throwing people away. We aren't like... in your mind, you have a whole vision you're trying to get to, and values that undergird that, but it's against the logic model of the generation ahead of you. So it's going to be a tough fight. But here's what I know. If you say, well, that's tough, I'm going to start playing Pokemon Go. Or go, some other direction, go get a black bandana and do crazy stuff. We don't get to the future that you want. See, this country's never going to be any better than you. Never. We're never going to be any more idealistic than you. Never going to be any more determined, innovative than you. You're the best thing we've got. You are our floor and our ceiling. So what I can say is stay in this fight. I don't know the tactics, and I don't know that you're going to win. But what I know is that we're going to win because of you. And what you learn how to do on this campus, I don't do anything any different right now in my life, and I'm almost 50 years old, than I did than I learned how to do when I was your age. When I was your age, I learned how to write and fight. I learned how to write very well, persuasively, got A's. And I learned how to fight for what I believe in. I learned how to work with other people. I learned how to listen. That's what this is going to be about. You're going to win ultimately. And these people are going to look very, very bad. When I was your age, we fought, and you've heard it 1,000 times, but it's true. We fought to get Mandela out of prison. And they said the same stuff to us they say to you. But we won, and he won, and the world won. And everybody who was on the wrong side of that fight looks like an idiot. And they won't even admit it. Everybody marched with Dr. King. We can see the videos, man. Y'all weren't all there. It's like everybody was in the 60s. I marched with Dr. King. No, you didn't. There are pictures. You're not in them. Right. And then everybody in the 80s was for Mandela. You weren't. Who were we fighting against? Why were we having the sit-ins then? If everybody was for Mandela in the 80s. So, I tell you, I appreciate you. I really do. And I know it's tough. And you got classmates who say you're wasting your time. But they're wasting their times. If they're here on a college campus with the world on fire, you got California burning down, you got the biggest drought, in 500 years, you got people protesting all around the world and all across your country. You got videos that are starting to normalize. It's almost like snuff films now of people being murdered in your country. You see all this stuff happening, and you're not doing anything about it except maybe, retweeting something. You're wasting your time. This will be in the history books. What your generation does will be in the history books. These fights are decade-defining, century-defining fights. And you guys who are on the front lines of that stuff, keep your grades up because you want to go to grad school. But stay in the fight. Thank you.